Hey, welcome to the Butch Yoga Podcast. I am Joelle, your host here, and we have got a great episode today. They're like all pretty good. But this is one of my favorite ideas that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm really excited to share it with you. So what is it? What are we talking about today? You may wonder. Well, we are going to be talking about an idea from Taoism. So it's from Taoism, that's religion based in China. It's like pretty old. Been talking about it before, so you might have some idea. We're not going to go too much into like the basics and like history and all of that today, but we're going to talk specifically about this one idea in Taoism that is called Wu Wei. Wu Wei, that's Chinese. And what does Wu Wei mean? Well, that's a little difficult to describe, but the way that it's most commonly translated is as non-action or non-doing. And, being a concept from Taoism, it's hard to define. It's hard to say exactly what it is. Kind of like the Tao itself, as you may remember that we talked about in the first episode. It is slippery to define exactly, but we're going to talk about some different like metaphors and ways that we can apply it to our lives. So, yes, we will be talking about the idea of Wu Wei in like a general sense for our lives. And also we're going to take a closer look at the idea of Wu Wei as it can apply specifically to how we experience and express our gender. So cool. Yeah, pretty exciting, right? I'm excited. I love it. I love this idea. It's been very helpful to me because I am someone who maybe relate to this. I can get very caught up in doing things and wanting them to go a certain way and wanting to like be kind of controlling of how things are. And Wu Wei is like, yeah, no, you can't really do that. It's just not gonna work out. You need to let things be what they are. And by doing that, that's actually the best way to have things happen. It's like kind of paradoxical, as so many ideas get kind of paradoxical when we are talking about like spirituality, that it's by not taking as much action that you can actually have the best results. And so you might be like, no, but what, I'm just supposed to not do stuff? And that's not exactly it. It's like called non-doing, but it doesn't mean don't do anything. It doesn't mean that you don't do stuff and you're just like, oh, Wu Wei, everything's unfolding naturally, so what do I need to do? Like with some things, sure, but with other things, it means like you do take action, but in a way that is in harmony with the natural unfolding of things. You do things in a way that it doesn't feel like you're forcing it. You're not forcing anything. Can you like get that distinction? So it's like doing stuff, but you're not forcing things. That's the thing with Wu Wei. So, okay, like It's also, so if you remember a couple episodes back, we talked about this idea of wabi sabi from Buddhism, which wabi sabi is about appreciating things as being perfect as they are unfolding over time. That even if they might not seem perfect, you know, even if things seem like kind of like wonky in ways, like going back to the example of like toddler who's learning to walk, their steps, their first couple little steps might seem kind of clumsy and not actually so perfect if you think of like what like a perfect human step would look like. I mean, I don't know if that's such a thing, but you know, if you like in your mind imagine like someone taking like a confident step, it's like that's not what a toddler looks like. They're kind of like wobbling around and stuff, but it's like appreciating that those wobbly little steps are perfect for that toddler in that moment, like by recognizing the potential of what it's growing into, and that like what it is in this moment, it's not going to be like that forever, and that you can't force it. Like, I have heard there are different ways to like help encourage a child to learn to walk faster, but you still can't force it. It needs to happen over a certain kind of time. So that's like part of how the idea of Wu Wei connects with wabi sabi. Wabi sabi is more like the like adjective part of this, and Wu Wei is kind of like the verb part. If that makes any sense, if that like helps to understand. I just made that up, so I don't know if that's like true or something, the like adjective verb thing, but it makes sense to me as a way of relating to these ideas. But that's not like official, like Buddha didn't say that or anything. Wu Wei isn't even Buddhist. These ideas aren't even from the same religion, so I'm just like bringing them together a little bit chaotically, but in a way that I think can help to make sense of them. So anyway, we're not gonna force that because that's the whole point. So yeah, Wu Wei is about noticing how to act in perfect harmony with what's happening without forcing other ideas of what should be happening onto a situation. So it's interesting, forcing like other ideas. Those other ideas, they might be ideas from other people. They might be ideas from yourself about how you think things should be, but they're not. And you want to like make things be a certain way. But that's not always gonna work out. Sometimes that's really gonna mess you up if you like are trying to force things in ways that are not like what's like the natural rhythm of how things are happening. So to go to another episode that we had, it was the episode number 6, which was about like how to do stuff and 3 different parts of taking action. So the first part was your intention, and then the next part was acting skillfully based on awareness of what's going on. And then the third part was letting go of attachment to the result. So when we think of that middle part, the acting skillfully, that also relates to Wu Wei. Like that's one way of thinking of how we can act with skill, by letting things take their course, like unfolding naturally over time and finding the right moment. So it's like in the Wabi Sabi episode, we talked a lot about like flowers too, and like that you can't force a flower to bloom. You know, like if you're in the garden and you see a flower that like it's like budding, you can't be like, I want it to bloom now. I mean, you could say that, but what's that gonna do? And if you went and you said, no, I'm gonna make this flower bloom now, and you took the bud and you tried to like unfold it and be like, this is blooming now because I want it to bloom now, you're gonna like break it, you're gonna mess it up, you know, it won't ever bloom because you like, you know, just like broke the thing by like trying to force things to happen in a way that they just won't happen like that. So I hope that helps to make some more sense. Another example, love these like garden examples. I love garden metaphors generally. You may have noticed, I think they're just cute. But yeah, so another thing with Wu Wei and taking action, it's like, you know, when we think about things ripening, it's like you want to wait for like the fruit to be ripe before you pick it. So there's like this aspect of like waiting, but I want to clarify, it doesn't mean not doing anything. Like non-doing doesn't mean you don't do anything. It doesn't mean you wait forever for the fruit to get ripe. No, it's like when the fruit is ripe, then you pick it. Because if you wait too long and you don't take action, you don't do anything, then the fruit's just going to fall eventually and rot. Like what's that doing for anybody? I mean, I'm sure it's like it's doing something, you know, it's like decomposing and becoming like compost and stuff. So not to say nature's always doing something. Nature's always doing something, even if it seems like, but you don't get to eat that fruit then if that was what, you know, you wanted. So that's part of what we're holding here, that it's like not doing, but you still take action when it is the right moment, but you're not doing so much extra stuff. You're not like sitting there under the fruit every day, watching it for hours, being like, are you ripe yet? Are you ripe yet? No. And how often do we do that with like things in our lives? I know I do. I wonder if you can think of any examples. Of when we are kind of trying to like push things when it's like that's not doing anything. You're just like spending energy that's not going towards anything. You're like spinning your wheels for nothing. So that's part of what we are trying to manage with this idea of Wu Wei, that we don't have to just be in this like pushing, forcing ourselves when that's not even going to help with anything. You know, it's like you can save so much energy for yourself by not trying to push things. Okay. Yeah, and like by not trying to push things, life feels better. Feels easier. Things feel more fluid. Wherever it's possible, you know, to like be more in the natural rhythm of things. It's just going to feel easier if you like let yourself be in that flow. So, okay. Something else I want to talk about, because this whole idea of non-action, I feel like it's so easy for us to be like, well, that just must mean not doing anything. Or like you only do the easiest thing, right? Like, because that's what like nature likes to do, right? Nature likes to do the easiest thing. Like a really common example for talking about Wu Wei is water and like the way that water moves. When you think of how water moves, it just goes, you know, it's not like a stream is rushing down a hill and the water's not like, oh, excuse me, I need to move in this way, in this specific linear path. I don't know why I made water sound like a nerd. That was like nerdy water instead of like flowy water. That was like nerdy water. That's like, oh, I have to do things in this certain way and I can't flow over that rock. I just need to flow down the path that is laid out for me and I can't flow outside of that. Like, no, that's not how water is. Water's chilling. Water's like, hey, what's up? I'm just gonna flow everywhere and cover everything that's in my path. I'm not gonna think about it. Just flowing. You can tell the difference of that water. The first water was kind of nerdy. That water is more like, hey, what's up? I'm cool, you know, like I'm just flowing with everything. But the thing is like that, like the water that's like the first water example that was like kind of like, I have to do things a certain way. Like, that's not how water is. That's not how water is at all. Water's just really like flowing over everything, non-linear. It's not thinking about like how it needs to go compared to like a line of ants. You know, a line of ants that are like marching. They're more like the first water example, that they're like, oh, excuse me, I need to follow my little ant line here. Water doesn't do that. Like we can try to like contain it and make it flow in certain directions, but it just will go in whatever way it goes. So much of Wu Wei is about this idea of being like water. And maybe that sounds really like chaotic to you. Like what? I'm just supposed to like flow everywhere or not like do anything that feels like there's any resistance. And that's not the point. The point isn't like that you only do the like absolute easiest thing. Or like, it is like the easiest thing in a way, but it's not necessarily like the like laziest thing. If that makes sense, like, it's like, okay, if you think about salmon and they swim upstream, right? That's what they do. That's what they do naturally. You would think, according to Wu Wei, the salmon would only swim downstream because that's like easier. That takes less effort. But that's not what the salmon do. The salmon swim upstream because that's what they're like naturally called to do. That's their natural rhythm, is to swim upstream. So Wu Wei can be like that too. And it can be like that for us. You know, sometimes what feels most natural to you might feel like swimming upstream in the world. Yeah, like one example that I want to give of that, of like what that can look like. Because yeah, for the salmon, all right, sure. But like, so one example of Wu Wei as kind of like swimming upstream, of like seeming like it's taking more effort, but like that you're following your natural rhythms, is I want to use the example of wearing a binder. So wearing a binder can be a very like gender affirming thing. Like, I know I like wore one out to like a little gathering last night and I felt so good wearing it. You know, it felt really right for me. Even though it sort of seems like a going upstream thing, you know, it's like this extra thing that I'm putting on that actually like restricts my flow a little bit. Not too much. No, you want to make sure that you can breathe good, that you still got some space to breathe. That's very important. Make sure it's not too tight. Mine's not too tight at all, but but it works. But it's definitely still, a little bit of constriction there. But it's like the way that it feels to me feels so much more natural than not wearing it. And it's so interesting to notice that for myself, like that, like my natural rhythms include wanting to wear a binder when I go out. And like, that's like part of what feels right for me. And then part of my natural rhythms are come home, take it off, do some stretches, loosen it up. And even though, yeah, it's like, that might seem kind of like the salmon swimming upstream, right? But it is. And like, that's part of nature too. It's not all like water flowing downhill. Sometimes it is seeming like not the easiest thing, but if that's what your being is calling for, if that's like what feels most in harmony for you, then that's like Wu Wei. So yeah, with gender, it's definitely like that. I mean, I used the example of the binder, but like with gender in general, that if you're listening to this podcast, gender might feel like swimming upstream for you compared to what most people in the world are doing, compared to what being cisgender means. Cisgender is kind of like flowing downstream. Being transgender or gender nonconforming in whatever way, that's more like swimming upstream. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. That just means that's your natural rhythm. And that it does take effort. It does take action to like do things that are going to feel affirming for you in your gender. But that action, it's not like wrong. It's like, that's your natural expression. That's your like natural impulse that you're following. And tuning into more of like what that is for you. What does that mean for you? Like, so generally in our lives, we want to make things easier for ourselves, right? Like, you want to make things easier for yourself where you can. But being true to yourself usually isn't the easiest thing to do in this fucking world, right? But you got to do that because you got to be you, like that's the thing. You don't just want to do what's easiest. That's not like the non-action part of just like, oh, you just go with the flow of society and don't like think for yourself or do like think about like what you want. No, it's that you let yourself be you in the ways that flow through you. You let yourself move in the ways that you feel pulled towards. So like when we think of like Wu Wei as like being like water is so fluid, it's fluid. Yeah. And because of that, it can adapt. It takes any shape, anything you pour it in. I have water in this cup. So the water is like this shape. I got water in this bottle, so the water is this shape. If I poured it in like a square flat container, the water would take that shape. It's like whatever's going on with the water, it takes that shape. And part of the idea is letting yourself have that same kind of like fluidity for yourself. So, what? How do you do that? Well, it's like letting go of rigid ideas from others, and even the ideas that you've been carrying for yourself. You know, like there's probably a lot of beliefs that you have about yourself that might not be up to date anymore. And it's important to like keep checking in with ourselves and like letting go of what's not fitting. Because that's going to like help you experience the flow of your being when you're not like clogging yourself up with like these different ideas about who you think you should be or who others think that you should be. So like, okay, going back to like the water flowing down a stream. It just flows over everything. You know, it's not like in my little first personification of water that was all like, oh, excuse me, I need to flow down this path in this specific way. No, water just flows over everything. Like rocks and branches, it's just flowing. And that's kind of like the flow of your life. You know, like your life is just kind of flowing. But, and like maybe it doesn't look so neat and organized and like linear. But however you are flowing through the world, like recognizing that like that's perfect and that's just you like moving through your path. And part of what we want to do is help to clear out the places where your flow has gotten a little stuck for whatever reason. There's so many different reasons why that can happen. You know, you think of a stream. Although the water can flow over all kinds of stuff, sometimes it can get like clogged up by, you know, like beavers make a dam, or even without beavers, you know, what, like, you know, there can just be like leaves that get piled up and the water can't flow through there. It's also like that with us. We get clogged up in different ways through our like beliefs about what we can or can't do, through, you know, like things just like actually in our physical body of like maybe like sitting a certain way for many hours. And so you feel certain kinds of like points of like energy getting stuck, like in your shoulders, around your neck, in your lower back. Just as an example, could be all different kinds of ways of getting blocked up. Also like emotionally, we can get blocked up in certain ways. So part of like what we want to do is to clear ourselves so that our energy can flow more freely. And the idea is that when that's happening, you just kind of feel better in general, you know, like that's, we don't just talk about Wu Wei because it's like, oh, isn't this a cool idea? It's like, because we want to embody that more in our lives and like find how to do that. And all right, so, okay, I know this probably all sounds pretty abstract. Like, oh, sure, I'll just let myself experience the natural flow of my being, flowing more freely. Yeah, sure, that sounds great, Joelle. Let's just do that. Like, no, but like, what does that mean? What, like, how do you actually do that? What does that mean? And so, here's the thing. You can't actually do it. Sorry to like introduce all this and then be like, sorry, you can't You can't do it. Oh, isn't this all a nice idea? But you can't like do it. Because it's non-doing. You can't like do non-doing. It's one of those paradoxical kinds of things. But you can be it. You can be it. That's, you're like, okay, well, how do I be it then? If you want to be like that, Joelle. How do you be it? Well, you practice. You practice different ways of letting yourself be in more of a Wu Wei kind of state so that it can carry over to more areas of your life. So, like there are Taoist practices in Qigong that help you get into more of that state and like appreciate the natural rhythms of things. Practices like with movements that are really like flowy. Love that. I was doing some of that last night before bed. It just really, yeah, helps to like recenter in like the natural rhythms of things instead of our unnatural rhythms that can be so like, go, go, go. Okay, now next thing. That's how like it kind of normally feels for me, aside from like when I do these practices to like get more in touch with the way that things are flowing and the way that what's flowing. Well, for one, the breath. Getting in touch with the natural rhythm of your breath is a great way to practice Wu Wei. Because your breath is always going, it always has a natural rhythm. And you also don't do it. You know, you're not really like doing breathing, are you? I mean, you can. Maybe now that I mentioned it, now you are consciously noticing how your breath is. But usually you don't like do breathing. Maybe sometimes you do like breathing exercises, and that's really cool. But most of the time you're not doing breathing. You just are breathing. And that's moving in the natural rhythm of your breath. So that's like an interesting way of thinking of it, that we're just like connecting with these like natural cycles within us and tuning into more of that. Okay. Cool. I wonder how that's making sense for you. Okay. And another point that I want to make about Wu Wei is that when you're like flowing with the Wu Wei kind of way of being, things feel more relaxed. You know, like, which I think just makes sense. Part of the idea is that you're not forcing things. And when you're not forcing things, that really does leave more space for just feeling relaxed, right? And there is this proverb that's a Chinese proverb. I can't find the attribution for it specifically. So it's from China a long time ago. That's all I could find. But it's one of my favorite quotes. And it says, tension is who you think you should be. Relaxation is who you are. I'm gonna read that one more time. It's like so good. Okay. Just a second, take a sip of water. It's like the quote's too good. I just like had to prepare myself. Okay. Tension is who you think you should be. Relaxation is who you are. Oh my God, I love that quote so much. And it feels like it applies so well to this concept of Wu Wei, that when we're acting like who we think we should be, we're in this state of like trying, as opposed to being who you are. Then you're not trying, then you're just being. So, yeah, just do that. Just, be. And maybe you're like, well, if I just did that, I wouldn't do anything. Which I understand, because that's like one of the things that I can think of with like myself with Wu Wei. It's like, oh, but if I'm just not forcing myself to do stuff, how am I supposed to like do stuff? And there's stuff you gotta do in our society, like we live in a society. So there is stuff that you have to make yourself do. I'm sorry about that. Like, it sucks, but yeah, no, there are some things that we have to make ourselves do to like survive, to keep existing, to meet our needs, to take care of ourselves. Like, okay. One example of that is let's see. Yeah, all right. I was gonna say, like, for me, okay, let's talk about like taking care of yourself. I have this idea that washing my face with like a face wash thing, that's like self-care, like that I should be doing that. I mostly don't want to. I mostly don't want to do it. When I do it, it feels nice. I'm like, ooh, smooth face. Wow, it's like so clean. Amazing. But mostly I don't really want to do it, honestly. I just but it's like I know that that's a nice thing to do for myself. So I try to make it easier for myself, to make it so it doesn't feel as much of like a swimming upstream kind of thing for me to get myself to do it, but to set things up so it feels easier for me. So I have like my little like face washcloth there. I've got like, and I try to make it like a whole thing in the evening, that it's like setting it up for it to be nice instead of it being like this thing that I have to do that I don't want to do. I try to get in the mindset of, this is nice. This is a nice thing that I'm doing for myself. And it's like that with so many things. It's like that with so many things that I feel like I kind of have to like convince myself that it's like, no, this is nice. This is like good. This is going to help you and like feel good for you. Just like talking to myself. But yeah, it's not just like, maybe Wu Wei seems like just like lying on the couch and not doing anything. But it's like, no, it's like supporting yourself to connect with what you can do to help make things feel easier for you. That's like, I think part of it, like for one, having support. When it's just me, it's a little hard. It can be a little hit or miss when it's like just me who is in charge of, like everything in my life, kind of. But like focusing specifically on like self-care stuff. Like let's say with like my yoga practice. I do it, like I do some moves most every day. Honestly, not every single day do I like officially do some yoga moves, but like most days I do some. And especially as I feel like I need it in my body, I'll like do some. But when I'm teaching a class, it's so easy for me to do all of that, like when I'm connecting with someone else who's also doing yoga. It's so easy to just do it. It feels like I don't have to think about it as much as when it's just me. And maybe you found it's like that for you too. Like if you try to do something just by yourself, it can be hard. It can be hard to like get yourself to really do it, or like to do it for like as much as you wanted, or like the amount of time that you wanted, which is also perfect. Do your best with like showing up as much as you can. But just saying that it can help so much to have support, that it like can make things more Wu Wei. It can make things feel more natural. It can help us to tune into something that's like more than just ourselves, to have outside support for the things that we want to do, whether that's like doing yoga or meditating or other kinds of self-care stuff, like emotional stuff, like thinking about what your feelings are. Like it's really good to do that sometimes, to kind of like see what's going on in there, checking in with your intentions for yourself. Like that feels easier when there's support. Like I notice so much when I do a lot of like different online groups that I like, am a part of. And it's amazing to me how much easier it feels to like write down my intentions or write down like deeper feelings that I'm having when someone's holding the space for it and saying, okay, you have 2 or 3 minutes, just write this down. It's so much easier than if it's like just me here. So that's also part of Wu Wei, is like seeking out support for doing more of what you want to do, and whatever you want to do. I'm using yoga and meditation and like journaling as examples because, well, I feel like if you're here, if you're listening to this, maybe you want to do those things. Maybe those are some things that you also want to have be a more regular part of your life, but maybe you find it kind of harder to do on your own. And that's part of the whole idea with Butch Yoga, is wanting to offer you the support, wanting to offer you the space to help make it a little easier to do these things that like you probably might want to be doing anyway, but like don't feel as much support for. And going to like other yoga classes that are not queer, that are not like specifically trans inclusive, that like going to those classes can make it feel even harder. That can make it feel like just like you don't want to do it, like it doesn't feel good, doesn't feel motivating, doesn't feel like deeply supportive to who you are in your natural rhythms, in like, wanting to feel good, in really connecting with yourself in a space where you feel Like you can be yourself. So this is where I talk about Butch Care Club. And that's the point of this space that is being created. So maybe you are already aware of this like space that I've been talking about that's called Butch Care Club. And that's the idea behind it, is to make it easier for us to do self-care in different ways, to feel supported by community as we are like practicing loving ourselves more, as we're practicing taking care of ourselves. Because like with loving ourselves, you know, there's like, oh my gosh, there's so much there. What a big, you know, whole emotional thing to be talking about. But there's like this practical aspect of it too, of like, it's almost like thinking of like your love languages for yourself. Like, how can you do acts of service for yourself? Like, what do those look like? Beyond doing the chores, you know, like beyond just like feeding yourself, which those are also beautiful ways to like express your love for yourself. But yeah, it's like, how are you, you know, like usually with love languages, we talk about them with other people, you know, like in your romantic partner or something. But think about applying it for yourself. Like, how can you like love yourself in like practical ways? Usually saying like love yourself, it's almost like saying like something like be like water. It's like, okay, sure, that sounds nice, but what does that actually mean? Like, how can you actually do that? And it's finding ways to do something special for yourself, to help yourself to feel good, to feel more supported. And it's not something that you have to do alone. Like, I feel like that's one of the things that kind of like sucks so much about thinking about self-care. It's like, oh shit, that's like all on me. You know, it's like, oh, just me, myself. But no, that's part of the point of Butch Care Club, is that it's not just you. Like, yeah, in some sense, it is just you. You know, like it falls back onto you. But knowing that you're not alone in the experience of it, that you'll be able to share, that you'll be able to connect with others in like live events where we are like doing practices together and sharing like our feelings about them, you know, sharing what's coming up for us, not feeling so alone in it, letting it feel more fun, letting it feel a little easier, letting it feel more natural than in like most other yoga classes. So that's the idea with Butch Care Club, which if you listened to the previous episode, talked a lot about it, talked a lot about the motivations for Butch Care Club, what's coming with that. So if you did not listen to that one, check that out if you're like curious to find out more. Like, Butch Care Club, what the fuck is that? Like, what does that mean? And I want to say that it is coming soon. Like, what's today? Today, if you were listening on the date that this is released, it's April 26th. And we are going to be opening Butch Care Club, I think, on May 6th. So that's not this Saturday, but the next Saturday. I think. I'm pretty sure. I'm like, I really got to watch it with myself with saying dates, because I'm like, am I gonna push it back more? I don't know. No, but I think it's gonna be May 6th for real. It's really something working with my natural rhythms of how things go, and learning more about myself all the time, and how to how to support myself as I work to set this up. So that's a big part of it. I am very much in this too. In all of this, it's like, so what I need to be hearing, and I hope it's been helpful for you in thinking of like what you might need to be hearing too. And yeah, right, Butch Care Club. If you are interested in joining that, so I said it'll be like May 6th that it's open, but for now you can get on the wait list. And you do that by going to the website. You can just type in bit.ly, bit.ly/waitlist for, like the number 4, Butch Care Club. All lowercase. It's all lowercase. Waitlist for Butch Care Club. And yeah. By the way, did I mention there are 115 people on the wait list already? What? That's so many people. That's so many people. I am so excited to like open this up and like have people start joining and like really like opening up this community and like letting us create this space together to feel more support, to feel more of a sense of community, to feel like, just really like not as alone in your process of like what you're going through with trying to take care of yourself, with trying to just like make it in the world, to survive, and like not just be surviving, but to like support ourselves, to feel as good as we can in our bodies, and to be able to like show up fully as who we are, and like to make the impact that you want to have in the world. Like it helps so much to have some support. So that's what we're doing. That's the whole thing. But we're doing it, but we're also doing it in like a non-doing kind of way. That's also part of the dance of what's going on here, is like making it happen without forcing things. So yeah, I wonder if there's anything going on in your life that you feel like you could apply this idea of Wu Wei to. Like what's something where you feel like you can see that maybe you've been forcing things and you want to like let go of that and like let things just take their natural rhythm and allow for that, and like appreciate that that's like the wabi-sabi nature of the moment, that things just are continuing to unfold and like go through like the processes that they're going through. Whether that's something you're working on in your life, whether it's something like more personal to you, like there's so many different ways that this can show up. So yeah, I hope that this idea has been useful to you. Feel free to like write back and let me know what you think about this idea or anything relating to the Butch Yoga podcast, or if you just want to say hey, or if you like have questions about Butch Care Club, feel free to reach out. You can send a DM on Instagram. The Instagram is Butch Yoga. You can find us on YouTube, Butch Yoga. What else we got? I said like the waitlist thing. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Aside from sending DMs, follow, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. You gotta like say that shit. So I said it. All right, getting silly now. That's a good sign that it is time to wrap up this episode of the Butch Yoga podcast. But thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have just a beautiful rest of your day with whatever you do, or whatever you practice not doing from here. Okay. Bye.